Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Joffrey Noodle Legs here today. Today I'm going through another top 10 for you, a horror top 10. One I haven't done yet and I've been talking about doing for ages, but just never got round to it. And it's been a difficult one because I've left a lot of films out, and I'm thinking about it now, and I'm thinking, oh, I should have put that in. But I'm doing my top 10 zombie films. Now, it's a bit of a different genre, it's a bit of a difficult genre to do in a way, because what is a sort of zombie? Now, there's different sort of things, really, isn't there? It's the living dead. So are vampires zombies? They kind of are, aren't they? Because you think a zombie, description of a zombie is a living dead, a dead person who comes back and feeds on other people that are alive, and if they survive a zombie attack, they turn into zombies themselves. Now, isn't that like a vampire, except it does the blood rather than the feeding on the flesh? So it's marginally difficult, but I didn't put any vampire films in here. And of course, another thing that people do get confused with, it's films like Train to Busan and things like 28 Days Later, things like that. They're not zombie films because they're not zombies. They are infected with viruses. So they got infected with a virus, a bit like the Crazies. It's a virus thing. It's not a zombie. Because like 28 Days Later, they are got the virus rage, haven't they? That's not a zombie, and they're quite similar because what they want to do is attack other humans and pass the virus on. But they're that's what it is. But it's not a zombie film, so I couldn't put 28 Days Later in here. I've also tried to avoid really sort of commercially successful things like Shaun of the Dead. I've avoided those as well. And there's a few in here, like I said, that I wish I'd put in here, but I haven't. So I'm going to give them a little honourable mention, because I do have a couple of honourable mentions here, because they're in there and I just don't want to go and dig them out. That's The Living Dead in the Manchester Morgue, and Plague of the Zombies. I should have picked them out and put them in here as honourable mentions, but I've just forgot. But anyway, they're two honourable mentions. Really good films. So before I get to my top 10, I do have two honourable mentions here. One is a George Romero film, Diary of the Dead. This is one of his latter zombie films. I really enjoyed it. Gets a bit of flack, but I actually quite enjoyed it. I quite like the sort of the way it was set out. It's about this sort of group of students making a horror movie, and this says that the dead are about the zombies. So, and they sort of like got to try and survive that whilst they're trying to make a film, and it's quite a good fun film. I quite enjoyed it. Not one of his better movies, but I quite enjoyed it. And the other honourable mention goes out to The Girl with All the Gifts. Really cool about this sort of like a zombie infection around the world, and they've got a young girl who's a zombie, but she's managed to control it. She doesn't seek the flesh of other people. So, and they're trying to sort of like work on her to see if they can maybe get the other zombies to be the same. Maybe by, I'm not sure how, but a little bit like 28 Days Later, I suppose. But it's quite cool. Good film. Girl, all the gifts. The only other honourable mention I'll give to, I haven't picked up, is World War Z. But that, again, that's just because it's quite a highly commercial, successful film. So I've tried to avoid a lot of those. There's probably a couple in here, but I'll try to avoid them. So I won't waste any time. I'll get to my top 10 zombie movies. At number 10 is an 80s comedy zombie movie, and it's The Return of the Living Dead. Quite low down, you probably think, for quite a cool movie. Yeah, but it's a good movie. It's good fun. I think it lacks a couple of things. I think it really lacks the gore, for one. It's cool to be a comedy. It is quite funny and it is quite cool, but it lacks the gore. And if it had the gore, that probably would have been a lot higher up. and talking zombies and stuff was a bit weird, but there we go. I quite liked it to a point. I liked the soundtrack. I thought the soundtrack was cool, and I quite liked the characters. I thought they were really good. But that's number 10, Return of the Living Dead. Number 9 is a George Romero film, and it's A Land of the Dead. I quite like this one, to be honest. It's a bit more big budget, commercially sort of film for him, to be honest. I think he made this on the back of the Dawn of the Dead remake, because that was highly successful. He didn't direct the remake, but I do believe he was still a producer of that, so he did have some involvement with it. But that was highly successful, and I think he made this off the back of that sort of success. They probably thought, well, because that was successful, we really need a new George Romero film, and he's made Land of the Dead, and it was quite good fun. And it's about they've built this sort of like car, which is sort of like used to sort of like kill loads of sort of like it's like a multi sort of weapon sort of van, and they used to go out and I think they've inhabited like a shopping centre or like a precinct, like a shopping precinct where people are living sort of free from the infection, and then the zombies get in and sort of thing, a little bit like Dawn of the Dead to a point, really. But the zombies are quite intelligent, as they actually have a leader, which was quite cool, quite a different take on it. I quite enjoyed it. Can't remember what the name of the van was called, but it sounded like they're becoming or something. I can't remember, but yeah, it's quite a cool little film, quite a good cast, big budget, good zombie film. Like I said, there is a couple of big budget ones in here. Number 8 is a Italian classic, which I think with Ian McCulloch, and it's a Zombie Holocaust. I do really like this one. I do quite like the zombies. It's very similar to Creeping Flesh and Flesh Eaters. It's very similar, but they're all pretty similar. All these sort of. This is a really cool film. This has got a mixture of zombies and sort of like cannibals in it. It was quite cool. It was quite gory. It is, well, all the Italian zombie movies were gory, but I particularly like this one. I thought it was good fun. Had a little bit of charm to it. I quite liked it. That was in at number 8, I believe. Let's have a look. Can I have a look again? 10, 9, 8. Yep. Number 8. Number 7 is a trilogy. And I'm going to put it in here, although they're not strictly just zombie films, but they do have zombie content. And that's the Gates of Hell trilogy. Okay. So I've put that in there at number 7. So that includes City of the Living Dead, The Beyond, and House by the Cemetery. These are really cool films. It's about a book that opens the gate of hell, and obviously when that's opened, you've got all these sort of things happening. You've got zombies, you've got hauntings, all sorts of things going on, getting people possessed by stuff. So it's a combination of pretty much a lot of horror films in here, and they are quite confusing stories, but they're really cool and they're quite good effects, and there is some quite cool zombies in there. I really do like them. They are typical Italian horrors, and they're all made by Lucio Fulci, who made other zombie films, which I'm sure we're going to come across further up. Gates of Hell trilogy is in there at my number 7. Number 6, let me take it out. I'm going to go with the recent one that I reviewed, Tombs of the Blind Dead. I really love this film. I think it's fantastic. I love the way it's shot. I like the story behind it. I love the zombies, as I told you before. I love the tackiness of it. I like the poor acting. I like the soundtrack that doesn't fit it. I just love everything about it. It just screams sort of tacky horror, if you like, and I love it. It's really cool. But the zombies are amazing. I was going to put the whole set in there, to be honest, the Blind Dead set, but I'm just going to go with Tombs of the Blind Dead in there at number 6, just because I wanted to just single one out that I particularly like. And I think you can probably pick it up on its own rather than a box set, because the box set can be pricey. So That's in number 6, Tombs of the Blind Dead. So I'm down to my top 5, and these are all what I class as classics, really. Number 5 is a George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, the iconic zombie movie which sort of started the Living Dead sort of a whole sort of genre of it, you know, and this is what kicked it all off. There were zombie films before this, obviously, you know, but this was like the one that really sort of like brought it to like a new audience, if you think, and a wider audience. This was huge in America, played at loads of drive-ins and just all over the place. And since then, it's done nothing but gain cult status and been classed as quite an important film of the horror genre. So Night of the Living Dead, there is a review on my channel, so I don't need to go through it with you. So that's my number 5. Number 4 I've talked about a few times, and I must do a review of this film. I just got round to doing it, and it's Pontypool. I love this film. It's a different take on the zombie film, whereas you don't really see the zombies in the film. It's all based in like a radio station, and there's people working there, and then some people get in from outside, escaping the outside, and it's about their survival inside this radio station while all hell breaks loose on the outside. And you can hear broadcast live over the radio, because he's trying to do that to make people aware, you know, and tell them where to go, not to go. And you hear loads of sort of things over the radio that's going on outside. It's quite eerie and spooky. I like the sort of different take on the zombie film, and I thought this was really underrated. Such a cool film. Pontypool's my number 4 favourite zombie movie. So my top 3. Difficult to put these in these order, but I've done it now. Number 3 is George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. The classic, as you know, based around a sort of shopping mall in America. This was filmed in the 70s. This is the Blu-ray set. It's got loads of different versions of the films on there, and lots of extra features. Classic film. It's very sort of iconic. There's lots of iconic parts in there. It's just a great film. The zombies look really cool. They're all sort of blue, and there's quite a lot of gore in there. It's quite gory. Not the goriest, but it's up there. It's just a good classic iconic zombie film. Dawn of the Dead, in at number 3. Number 2 is the Zombie Flesh Eaters. I had to put that number 2 because nothing beats the number 1. This is fantastic. Again, stars Ian McCulloch, like Zombie Holocaust. It's the same sort of principle. It's like an island that's been infected by zombies, and they go in there to speak to the doctor there and all this sort of thing, and then they get caught up with the zombies. The zombies have ended up taking over New York and America and all sorts of things. It's a really cool film. This was an Italian film, and it was supposed to be supposedly like a sort of sequel to Dawn of the Dead. But you know, it was, I don't think it was ever sort of originally sort of set as this is the sequel, but they looked at it as making it as a follow-up to Dawn of the Dead. So number 1 can only be, yes, you guessed it, my favourite zombie film, Day of the Dead. I just love this film so much. It's just amazing. George Romero's 1980s zombie film. He seems to make when he was alive, he seemed to make a zombie film per decade, didn't he? Your 60s, you had Nights, The Living Dead. 70s, you had Dawn of the Dead. The 80s, we had this. And the 90s, I think we had, was Land of the Dead 90s or a bit later? I think we had a bit of a gap. Then we had Land of the Dead and Diary of the Dead and The Survival of the Dead, which I've got somewhere as well. Not particularly one of the good ones, but yeah, this is fantastic. This is based upon a military sort of base that's based on the ground. There's some soldiers and some scientists there trying to cohabit. The scientists are trying to find not necessarily a cure, but a way to sort of control the zombies, you know, and obviously up above ground, the whole world has been taken over by zombies, and there's it's like a personality clash sort of film, where the soldiers all fall out with the scientists, etc. It's extremely gory. There's some great zombies in the film, some great acting, cool story, great film, and you know my legendary story of watching this in a cinema. So there's a lot of memories for this film for me. So that's why that is my number one zombie movie of all time, Day of the Dead. There you go. That's my top 10 favourite zombie films. What are yours? Let me know below. Like I said, there was loads I could have put in here, like The Living Dead and Manchester Morgue, which I really, really liked. And, you know, there's so many zombie films out there, guys. You know, there's Deadheads. You know, there's that Cockney versus Zombies and all these sort of comedy ones that you can get. And they're all quite cool. But this is my top 10. And I think if you pick up any of those, you're going to have a good time with them. Please check out some horror channels for me before my next video. Check out Horror Hands, The Horror Geek, Man v Film, RS Designs, Pizzlewell, I Am the Ice Lord, Sarah of Horror. Check all those channels out for me, guys. They're all brilliant. Until next time, look after yourselves, look after one another, and I really hope I'll see you all soon.